All right, let's all go to File, Open, and go to the folder called Circle Without a Fill, and you will find Old Vintage Group Portrait.jpg, and that's the one I want you to open. And so we're going to pretend, I gave you a tutorial, and there's a different image in the tutorial, but I grabbed this one as one we could work on. We're going to pretend this is Great Aunt Julia, and you have an old picture of her, and you're sending it to family, and you want to point out who Aunt Julia is. So we need to circle her. And so what we're going to do is use the, Marquee Tool that is an ellipse. If you click on the marquee area, no matter what is there in your option bar, you will find both a rectangular and an elliptical marquee. So choose the elliptical one, and we want a perfect circle when we draw with this tool. So to make a perfect circle, you hold down your Shift key when you draw it. It forces it into a circle. Start somewhere to the left. It doesn't matter if you're perfect. Draw a circle, and then when you lift your mouse, move that circle back till it's centered over her head. And if you got something that doesn't look right, you can deselect, which is Control or Command D, and do it again. So if it didn't work, you take your Shift key and you drag a circle and make it whatever size you want. Lift your fingers. Go, oh, I lifted up. Well, good example. What goes wrong if you lift the Shift key first? Do it again. If you grab this and you hold the Shift key, and I draw this, if I want to keep a circle, I must lift my mouse button before I lift the Shift key. And then I can move this back and center it.
Say again, how do you move it?
Oh, okay, let's redo it. I'll deselect. You've got your elliptical marquee tool. You're up somewhere here to the left of the girl. You hold the Shift key down to draw a regular circle. And when the circle is drawn, don't lift the Shift. Lift the mouse button to set the marquee. Then lift the Shift key. And the reason you do that is you want to keep it as a circle, and it's the Shift key that keeps it as a circle. Is that part okay? And then move it back so it's centered around her. And now, in order to make it have some color to it, we are going to make a stroke around the selection. So most of us stroke around an entire image when we're getting one ready for competition, but stroking on a selection can be done on this kind of a selection. Look at your color picker. I chose a color that would contrast with the black and white photo for the time being. So if you click on that, if you've got the black and white, and you click on the black circle, you get your color picker. And I just chose a pretty vivid color. It doesn't matter what color it is as long as it's got some color. And since you've got this color set, that's always the foreground color is what is used when you create a stroke around a selection. So we're going to go up here, and under the Edit menu, you've got Stroke. If it's Elements, it says Stroke Outline Selection, but Stroke is what you're looking for. Click on it, and you get this menu. It will automatically have the color that you put in this foreground. If you hadn't created a color and you thought of it now, you don't have to go backwards. You simply click on this color swatch, and you get your color picker back. So if you don't like the color you have, or if you forgot to get a color, you do that and choose it, and then say OK.
How do you find the stroke again?
OK, I'll cancel, and I'll go back. It's under Edit. And as you come down, you'll find Stroke or Stroke Outline Selection.
Thanks.
Click on it. And now, how wide the stroke is always depends upon the pixels involved in your image. This image is not very big, and so 4 pixels works pretty well. But if you had a very large file, you'd need a larger width, and you would find out. So let's start with our traditional inside and say, OK. I want you to zoom in on what you just did. So grab your zoom tool and zoom in on this so you can see it better. So look how your red is inside the selection. Okay? Let us undo that last action. You have several ways to undo. You could always go to the history panel if you have it visible and back up. And I want to go back to the move selection before I made the stroke, one step. Or you can do the same thing with Control or Command on a Mac. The Z will do the same thing. It will move back one step. So we want to go back a step so we don't have a stroke. Okay? Now we're going to repeat it, and we're going to use center instead of inside. So go to Edit, grab the word stroke. This time choose the placement as center. Click OK, and notice where it falls on the selection. Okay? Now, to undo it, you can go back to history or Command or Control Z. Go back one step. Do it again. Edit, stroke, choose outside. By now, you know what to expect. You know, I had some crazy feeling that center would jump into the middle of the picture. I know. But obviously, if your selection is in the middle of the picture, it doesn't matter, does it? If you've selected the outside of your image and you go outside, it's not going to be visible. So the reason we go inside when we're putting a stroke around an entire image is we've already selected the edge and we want it to show. So we put it inside the edge. Here it doesn't matter because you're inside the whole image and you can do it. So why don't we make it fit the screen? To do that, you can go to View, Fit on Screen, or you see what the keyboard is? Command or Control 0 will do the same thing. View, Fit on Screen, and let's deselect those crawling ants. You can go to Select, Deselect, or look at the shorthand. Control or Command D for deselect will do it if you are a keyboard person. We all tend to be either keyboard. So you've now indicated who Great Aunt Julia or whoever is in your picture. Now, I don't know how often you'd ever use that, but I think it's useful to understand what those choices are in the stroke and why we always say use inside. So I did one thing wrong in this. I didn't make a blank layer first. We never like to work on the background, you know. So just for the benefit of it, let us go and undo these actions. Go back up to all the way up on your picture until you get to open. Can you see in the history? It's very useful to have the history panel. If you don't have it, you go up to the window menu and you choose the history and open that little extra panel and drag it over here, because now I can go all the way back to the beginning in one click. And I thought if we go back to the beginning, I might do it right, and it gives you another chance. So we want not to work on the locked background. We want to go and grab a new layer and now do our job on a separate layer. So look, how do we do it? Go to the Marquee Tool. Be sure you have the elliptical one. Grab the Shift key to make it a circle. Draw the circle. Lift your mouse button and then your Shift key. And move it back till it's centered like you want it. And now go up to Edit and find Stroke. And whatever color you chose is the color that the stroke will be, and the width depends upon the resolution of the image. We're using 4. And then to deselect the crawling ants, it's either Command and Control D or go to the Select menu and choose Deselect.
Would you do the move again? I can't seem to.
The moving of the circle?
Yeah.
Okay, you just grab inside. I'm going to go back up to Open. And I'm going to take the Marquee Tool with the Shift key down. I'm going to draw it, lift my mouse button and then my Shift key. grab inside the circle, anywhere, and move it.
How do you get inside?
Just take your mouse.
Lift your shift key.
Yeah, be sure your shift key is gone. All you've got are hands on nothing. Now put your hands on your mouse button, point the mouse inside the circle, and you can move that circle anywhere you want. You can make this guy your great Uncle Harry. You move it anywhere you want it. And then when you've moved it, you can create a stroke so it's visible. Okay? While we have it here, let's deselect, and if you haven't gone back to the beginning before, go back now. Let's show you how you use that Marquee tool if you're choosing the entire image. Expand your window. You see the window that shows your picture? If you go to the bottom right corner of that window, you'll get a double arrow and allows you to make it bigger. When you do that, you now see the edge of your image, which happens to be white here. Okay? Let's put a stroke around the entire image, which is what we commonly do when we're going to project an image. And the projector, as you can see here today, is dark all around the projection. If you want an image to show well, this one, of course, you recognize is no problem because it's white. But most of our images are not. Why don't we crop it so we don't have a white edge? Do you know how to use a crop tool? Go over to the tools, find the crop tool, and it should say no. Oh, this is on the new Photoshop. I don't like their choice. So what I do is I use the red circle and I get rid of that suggestion. Now I've got my crop tool like I like it. And I don't want any restrictions like 8 by 10 or 5 by 7. I want to simply crop away the white border. So I go to the upper left corner and I drag to the bottom right corner and stay inside the white, lift my mouse, and if I did what I want, I accept it, either with a return key, an enter key, or the green check mark in Elements. We now have an image which looks better for adding a stroke around it. So we're going to do just what we did, but this time we don't want to make it a selection inside the image. We want to select the entire image. And to do that, you go to the select and you choose all. That will put a selection around the entire image. For those who like the keyboard, it's Control or Command A, or select all. Now you see where your selection is. Now do you understand why a stroke outside that wouldn't be any good? It wouldn't be visible. It would be off the image. So we're going to add a stroke. At this time, we're going to use inside so we know it's visible. So go to Edit again. Come down to the stroke choice. And we're going to keep the color the same, although you certainly wouldn't put a red one around this image. And go say, OK. OK. And, oh, was it inside or out? I didn't change it. Oh, I've got to go back to Edit Stroke. Mine was outside, and guess what happened? It didn't have a stroke. Go to inside. Now, I didn't do that on purpose, but it would have been a really good thing to do on purpose. Okay, inside. And now, get rid of the selection. Select, deselect, and and if it looks like it's still there, just resize the window a little. Sometimes the crawling ants don't disappear till you resize the window and move it a little. So here, the same tutorial now has shown you how to put a stroke around an image that you're going to have projected, so that when it appears on the screen, what will it look like? Well, we have another little trick we can do. Instead of gray around the side, and that's not what you get when you project it. If you go up and take a normal cursor, let's just take the zoom cursor, and if you point to the gray area around the picture and hold your either right click, if you have a right click, or if you're a Mac without a right click, you hold a Control key and you click, and you've got the choice to change the gray area to black. Do that, and you'll see how that little red light helps to make a real definite edge to your image. On an image where you have some black, like this one down here, If you didn't have an edge, you would not see where that picture stops down here at the bottom. The black shirt would just blend right into the screen. So it always helps, and as much as we mention it, people still put images into competition without a stroke. So this is how you do it. Same way you make a little stroke selection